You're listening to Rise Above, a Rogers Behavioral Health podcast, where we sit down with Rogers experts who are changing the way the world views mental health and addiction. Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Rise Above, a podcast from Rogers Behavioral Health. Sometimes we hear the phrase, give yourself some grace. I know I've said it. I know I've heard it. And even though it's meant to help, it can feel vague. It can feel maybe unrealistic or maybe even a little insulting, especially when you're overwhelmed and doing your best to keep everything moving forward. So why is that? And what can we do to make the phrase, give yourself some grace, feel a little bit better in a way? So to talk to me about grace and giving ourselves a little bit more of it is Dr. Heather Jones, Chief Clinical Officer here at Rogers Behavioral Health. Dr. Jones, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for having me again.
So the phrase, give yourself some grace, I hear it, I use it, but what are we really talking about when we say that?
I think it's funny that we're having this conversation because I've heard this myself recently from a couple different sources. And I don't know what your reaction is in hearing it or also people's experience when giving it. I think it's really a well-intended phrase, right? Usually if I'm the giver of, Andy, you should really give yourself grace. It feels like it's coming from a sentiment of compassion and care. And being the recipient of it, though, it can be a little tough to hear. I also don't know if it's always so practical. If people that we're interacting with or care about are having a hard time, for people who, are working or have caregiving responsibilities, grace doesn't feel like something we have time for. I don't have time for grace. I don't have grace in my calendar. And so I think when we hear the words, give yourself grace, some guidance around that language is not an absence of accountability. It's not meant, I think, to be invalidating of the fact that life is really busy and can feel really overwhelming and heavy. It's maybe an opportunity for us to pause and self-reflect on, what do I need right now? What do I need in this time of my life that someone who probably cares about me is reflecting back to me that I might need to take a pause?
So when you hear the phrase, give yourself some grace, what makes it so hard for you to just give yourself some grace?
I don't have time. I don't have time for grace. I've got things to do. I have responsibilities. And I think for people who are drivers, have a lot of responsibility, it feels like a luxury. It feels like something. I'll share this with you, Andy. Like as a clinician, right? As a clinician, as a psychologist, I'll give you an example from my own life. We were talking about this idea of grace, and someone said to me, it's the idea of just taking a breath. And my personal reaction was like, that sounds like a really great suggestion I would give as a clinician. But now I'm the recipient of this, and it feels ridiculous.
It's almost as if somebody said, do less.
Oh.
You don't have to do so much, but if you're in a position where you do have to do so much, like to hear someone say that, be like, oh, I wish it was that easy.
Yes. Yes. I wish it was that easy.
And we will be right back. Everyone deserves a chance for recovery. That's what drives Rogers Behavioral Health Foundation. They're helping people get the mental health care they need, from covering treatment costs for those in need, to building clinics where care is hard to find, to funding cutting-edge research. They're making real change happen. And guess what? You can help. Head to rogersbhfoundation.org and be part of creating a future where mental health and wellness thrive. And now back to the interview. So how can we give ourselves grace even though we don't have time, we don't
Hmm.
have the resources, the patience, or the ability?
For me, it is taking that cue from the environment, not opting out, not decreasing responsibility, not admitting defeat, but taking the opportunity to understand how I can move forward with intention and how I can look for opportunities to be aware of how I'm responding. Something we know about thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. Um, we have no control over our emotions. They come like waves sometimes. And there's nothing we can do to change it. Our emotions come. Our thoughts, we have a little bit more control over those. We can exercise some mindfulness and do some cognitive restructuring. And we have a lot more control of our behaviors. When those emotions, though, are so intense, sometimes it doesn't feel like we have control over our behaviors, right? Those knee-jerk reactions and those responses, or in my case, when someone said, you should give yourself some grace, and my immediate reaction is like, yeah, right. What do you know? I don't have time for that. And really taking opportunities to pause and reflect on the stress triggers, to reflect on those automatic responses before responding is um, is I think this is an opportunity when hearing things like give yourself grace, this is an opportunity to be reflective and pause.
Sure, I think because oftentimes when someone is saying that, perhaps they see you struggling. Perhaps they see you having a hard time with something or, having an issue that's lingering. They're trying as as much as it
Yeah.
doesn't work, they're trying to help you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe hearing that phrase can give you a moment of, oh, maybe I'm taking on too much.
Yeah. Or even the taking on too much doesn't mean that I have to take on less, or it doesn't mean I even have the option to not take on whatever it is that I have on my plate. Um, but life gives us little signs and signals, right? Maybe it's someone saying, give yourself some grace. Maybe it's, coming down with a cold or not feeling very well after working a ton or pushing really hard or whatever it is. And I think approaching those moments with curiosity, reflecting on and noticing your reaction before responding, um, being mindful. Marshall Linehan talks a lot about mindfulness and dialectical behavioral therapy. That mindfulness moment, those abilities to just take a pause in life and notice your reaction will actually increase the likelihood of you responding more skillfully. And I think these are just signs that we can look at to say, this is the universe asking me to take a pause.
Or just a helpful neighbor telling you maybe you
Right,
need to
the
take a
universe,
pause.
right. The universe might be acting through your helpful neighbor.
This is true. I mean, they are trying to give you advice. So I
Yeah.
guess when I tell someone that give yourself a little grace, it's don't be so hard on yourself, but hopefully by hearing that, they somehow get a chance to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. That breath that we were talking about, it is, right? Sometimes we are our own worst enemy and I can give advice and I can be the doer and I can be the solver and I can be the person in my life who has all the things together and being that person some A makes it hard sometimes to hear give yourself grace, and then B it's difficult at times for us to admit that we need to pause. We need to take a breath. We need to slow things down. Our environment and our lives these days do not reinforce us for slowing down, doing less, or taking moments to be mindful. And um, it is it is the power of that moment. It cannot be overstated.
I know you said, it can be hard to give ourselves grace. Some people are better at it than others, right?
I think so.
And why is that?
Um, when we were talking about, high achievers, or people who have, executives or, parents who have, we're running in a hundred different directions all at the same time. We rely on that discipline, that follow through, that high level of self accountability. And these are strengths that allow us to be successful in certain contexts of our lives. The challenge is when that strength turns inward without a lot of compassion, right? So the same things that help me be successful, maybe in my professional life or in my athletic life, if those things cannot be an absolute for all aspects of my life. So grace is effort without shame. Shame is different than guilt. Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am something wrong, right? So being able to give grace means that I can take a breath. I can acknowledge that after I took a day off of work, I felt a little bit more balanced and I felt a little bit less reactive at work, or maybe I felt a little bit more patient with my kids. And so instead of being hard on myself and saying, I'm not good enough at my job or I'm not a good enough parent, grace allows me some space to grow and be better and to be more ready to take on the challenges of life rather than attacking myself or beating up on myself.
So, speaking of beating up on yourself, how are you at give how are you at giving yourself grace?
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
I asked to have this conversation and wrote about giving myself grace because my reaction was so strong to hearing it. And I'm like, if I have this reaction, other people must have had this experience or must be having this experience in their lives. And so it's been easier because I've been reflecting on it and meditating on it.
Hmm.
For the same reasons that I just told you, there are certain aspects of how I function in my professional life or my personal life that help me achieve things or be successful. But if that transcends every moment of my life, it's not sustainable and it will be exhausting. So taking time, breathing, exercising, even when it's a little chilly outside or raining, just ways that I make sure that I stay fulfilled and capable of giving myself some grace.
That sounded almost like advice. Is that advice for giving grace to yourself? Little moments, taking little moments for yourself, perhaps some exercise.
Yeah, it is it is really important to take that pause we talked about. And grace doesn't have to be built through huge accomplishments. Grace is built through small incremental changes, not declarations, things that align to, people talk about a 1% change every day. If you take a breath right before you brush your teeth, or take a breath right after you brush your teeth, or take a moment before you walk out the door to take a deep breath to start the day and maybe use that as a moment to meditate on an intention. Today I'm going to be patient. Today I'm going to notice before reacting. It can make a huge difference.
I was gonna say I've recently um been in my personal life taking moments in the morning to like prepare some goals for the day. Small goals. Not tiny goals, not brush your teeth. That is something I do every day. But small goals, making your bed or
Yeah.
getting the laundry folded and put away at the same time. an important thing. But taking those moments and doing it daily
Yeah.
brings with it some peace that I didn't have without it.
Yeah, I love that.
It sounds a little bit like grace.
I think so. Things like making your bed. You had mentioned making your bed. What's a success that you can have first thing in the morning and to like make your bed? It's not it's not a huge task, but it's a very early morning success.
It keeps me from climbing back into it and trying to get 20 more minutes of sleep is what it does.
Also, okay, that also can be helpful
But
strategy.
which is also a benefit for your daily life, you know? And now I'm up, I'm achieving, and I'm not, thinking about going back to sleep when I know I shouldn't.
That's right.
And we will be right back. Real quick, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about WISE, the Initiative for Stigma Elimination. It unites people across the nation to support those touched by mental illness and addiction. The compassionate approach champions personal stories and powerful connections, fostering healing by reducing stigma through evidence-based practices. Rogers Behavioral Health supports the work of WISE through their Community Learning and Engagement Department. WISE collaborates with a diverse network of organizations and individuals united in the fight against stigma. You can learn more about WISE, explore their 4 key programs, and connect with them by visiting the website www.eliminatestigma.org. And now back to the interview. So, taking a breath, taking some time for yourself, when you offer the advice of you should give yourself some grace, maybe using that phrase with a little more intention. Obviously, that phrase feels very loaded. It's like a loaded phrase.
When I think about saying the words to someone else, give yourself grace, there could even be a moment of reflection there. If I'm thinking it, gosh, she really needs to give herself grace. What is it that I'm feeling?
Mhm.
Am I feeling discomfort because of how much that other person is struggling? And so my statement of give yourself grace is actually serving me because I'm uncomfortable with how overwhelmed my friend is feeling. Is it said in a, of course, it's said usually in a way that's offering support, but to make it, I think, serve the other person is to acknowledge times when we ourselves have needed to give ourselves grace. Hey, I can see in this moment of your life that you have a lot going on. And I can reflect on times in my life where, man, I was balancing so many things and all of the plates were spinning and I didn't know which one I was gonna have to catch next. And have reflected on how much grace, giving myself grace has been helpful. And here's how I've been able to do that. Just wanted to share that with you because I see how much you're holding right now.
All right. So after all of this, the next time someone tells me, give yourself some grace, how should I handle it?
That will be your cue. That will be your cue to reflect on how you can take a pause and maybe again that's the universe giving you some reflection back that am I being hard on myself right now?
Sure.
Am I am i engaging in skillful responses, or is this person noticing something about my behavior that I might not be noticing, and taking the opportunity to reflect? Are there areas in my life that I kind of need to take inventory on at work, at home? Are there things that do we need to make a list? Am I setting too many goals in the morning? Do I need to just give a little bit of a break to, or reevaluate the sustainability of some of the things that I'm doing on a regular basis? So grace it doesn't have to remove responsibility or remove accountability for things, but it makes it livable and sustainable. And that's really our goal.
Dr. Jones, thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to take this with me, and hopefully the next time I need to give myself grace, I have a few more tools in my toolbox to help me do that. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Well, listener, thank you so much for spending this time with us. If the phrase give yourself some grace has ever felt confusing, frustrating, or out of reach, I hope today's conversation helped make it feel a little more practical and perhaps a little more possible. Grace isn't about doing less or caring less. It's about meeting yourself with enough compassion to keep going in a sustainable way. A huge thank you to Dr. Heather Jones for sharing her insight and helping us rethink what grace can look like in our lives. So if you know anyone who you think should give themselves a little grace, perhaps, feel free to share this podcast with them. And be sure to like and subscribe to be notified of new episodes. And as always, if you or someone you care about is struggling with a mental health or substance use disorder, visit rogersbh.org for a free mental health screening. Take care, everyone.